She arrived 3 hours early, the way she always did when a trip mattered. The boards over the ticket counters flickered with city names and departure times. Rolling suitcases hummed across the floor like a steady river. Aisha Carter moved with calm steps through the morning noise. She wore a neat travel outfit, a soft tee under a light jacket, tailored jeans, comfortable shoes, and a cardigan rolled in her tote in case the plane got cold. Her hair was braided close, and her face was fresh, no heavy makeup, nothing flashy. She looked like any focused traveler who did not want trouble or attention. She had a plan, and she kept to it. She checked the seat assignment on her phone. She glanced at the sealed envelope that never left her inner pocket and the secure phone with its black case, plain and unremarkable. She had practiced moving through public spaces as if she were made of quiet air. Do not create waves. Do not draw eyes. Be polite. Be precise. These habits had formed over years, and they helped her at work and in life. Today, they were important for both. The check-in agent smiled and weighed her carry-on. The bag passed without issue. Aisha thanked the agent, stepped aside, and tied a small red ribbon to the handle, her trick to spot the bag fast. She sent a quick text to her mother, at airport early. Flight later. Love you. A small blue heart came back at once, like a warm hand on her shoulder. She breathed in, turned toward security, and joined the line that wound between silver posts and soft ropes. The line moved steadily. Children pointed at a giant airplane poster. A couple argued softly about a charger. A business traveler rehearsed a presentation under his breath. Aisha set her tote on the belt with smooth, practiced motions. Shoes off. Laptop in its own tray. Jacket folded neatly. She greeted the screener with a smile and stepped through the scanner. The machine beeped once, then cleared her. The screener waved her on, polite and bored. In less than 5 minutes, she was back in her shoes and rolling her bag toward the gates. She chose a seat near a window where sunlight poured across the carpet. Outside, a plane pushed back, its tail bright against the blue sky. She sipped water and reviewed her route. A meeting on the other end. A fixed time. A handshake, a handoff, and a return. Nothing dramatic. Nothing large. But important nonetheless. She wrote a few lines in her notebook, the same way she always did, time stamps, small details, how the staff at the counter behaved, where the cameras were, what the exits looked like. It was routine. It kept her sharp. A light tremor of restlessness ran through the terminal as a flight changed gates. People stood, sat, reformed near a different door. Aisha noticed an airline supervisor glance toward her, then lean close to 2 airport police officers. The supervisor's voice was too low to hear. The officers' faces settled into a look she knew well, distant, brisk, already decided. Aisha kept her gaze on her notebook. Do not invite. Do not challenge. Wait. If there is a question, answer it calmly. She felt the small, steady beat of her own heart against the page. Ma'am, one officer said when they reached her row. He was tall, broad, with a badge that read Hail. His partner, Dorsey, stood just behind. Their hands rested near their belts, not in a threatening way, but not relaxed either. We've received a complaint regarding your attire. We'll need you to step outside with us. Aisha looked up with a neutral, friendly expression. Good morning. Is there a written policy I can review? She asked. Her voice was even. She did not want to sound defensive. She did not want to sound timid. Clear and calm. Dress policy, Hale repeated, as if the 2 words were enough. We'll discuss it outside. If there is a specific rule, Aisha said, I'll be happy to comply. I have a longer cardigan in my tote. She reached down and lifted the folded knit, showing it with open palms. I can put this on now. Dorsey shook his head. "We gave you a direction," he said, not unkindly, but with a final tone that closed doors. Passengers nearby began to watch. A phone rose in someone's hand. Another traveler pretended not to notice and then stared anyway. The air around the row felt tighter, like the space after thunder when people wait for the next sound. Aisha measured her options. She had a red-bordered credential in her wallet that could shift the air in a moment. But that was not for simple disagreements. It was for life and safety matters. Today, she had a mission on the other side of a flight. She also had a rule: do not reveal what you do unless doing so protects people right now. She kept her wallet where it was and nodded. "All right," she said softly, not because she agreed but because she understood the cost of arguing in a crowd. She stood, placed the cardigan back in her tote, and rolled her bag with her. The officers walked half a step behind. She kept her head level, her steps even. At the checkpoint, they guided her out through a side door and into the open hall before security. The sudden change quiet after the gate area's waiting buzz made her ears ring for a second. Hale spoke into his radio. Dorsey wrote something on a pad. The supervisor who had spoken to them earlier did not appear. "May I see the written policy now?" Aisha asked. She was not sarcastic. She simply wanted something specific to work with, something she could follow and then move forward. "Ma'am, we have discretion," Hale said. "We're asking you to leave the secure area at this time." "I understand you are giving an instruction," she replied. "I'm asking for the policy that supports it." No page was shown. No clause was cited. The exchange ended with Hale pointing toward a bench near the windows. "You can wait there. Do not attempt to re-enter until further notice." His tone was procedural, almost bored, as if he were saying the weather would be cloudy later. Aisha sat. Her hands were steady. She pulled out her notebook and began a simple record. She did not push hard with her pen. She did not rush. She wrote the time and the names on the badges. She described the setting: the bench by the window, the poster of a smiling family holding passports, the sound of wheels over tile. She wrote the phrases she had heard, not to prove anything later but to be precise now. Precision was a kind of shelter. When feelings rose, details could anchor her. From the bench, she could see the checkpoint line. A mother with a toddler walked through without shoes, laughter spilling behind them. A group in matching jackets joked and took a group selfie. The world kept moving in its normal rhythm. Aisha felt the small, sharp ache of being set aside for no clear reason. She let the feeling pass through like a wave that breaks and moves on. She lifted the cardigan from her tote, put it on, and zipped it to her collarbone. Clear. Modest. Undeniable compliance, even though no policy had required it. She called customer service from the number on a sign. The representative on the line was polite and surprised. No, there was no passenger dress rule the rep could locate in the public guidelines, beyond safety requirements and common courtesy. The rep offered to escalate. Aisha thanked her, asked for a case number, and wrote it down next to the time. Then she used the QR code on the wall to submit a formal note: date, time, names, brief facts. She kept her words measured. She knew that documents often told their own story when they were simple and complete. Her phone buzzed with a short, coded message from her handler: travel on plan. She replied with a neutral delay note that fit her cover. She kept the message clean, as if she were any traveler dealing with a missed connection. She did not mention the officers. She did not mention her feelings. She kept her world small and controlled: steps, facts, next actions. A supervisor in a navy blazer appeared near the checkpoint and scanned the hall. He had kind eyes that looked tired. Aisha rose and approached, careful to keep her voice soft. She explained that she wished to re-enter after adding the cardigan. She asked again for a written policy. The supervisor frowned, pulled up a tablet, and scrolled through internal guidance. His mouth pressed into a line. "I don't see a specific rule," he admitted. "Let me speak with them." He spoke with Hale and Dorsey for several minutes. Their faces did not change. The supervisor returned and said, "They've asked that you wait. I can review camera footage and check with my manager after the shift change. If needed, we'll rebook you at no cost." "Thank you," Aisha said. The words were true. The offer did not fix the moment, but it acknowledged that her time mattered. She sat again and watched the screens as her original flight moved from boarding to closed. A small pain landed in her chest. She took one slow breath and let it go. Some things you could control, some things you could not. Her job had taught her that lesson more than once. While she waited, she did what she always did, she observed. She noticed an unattended carry-on under a chair 3 rows away from the rebooking desk. It looked like a standard black roller, nothing special, but the handle was tucked down, and the bag sat just beyond casual reach, as if placed with a little thought. People walked past it. No one touched it. A man in a gray jacket drifted by twice, phone at his ear, his eyes moving more than his conversation seemed to require. She logged this in her mind and then looked away so as not to fix her interest. She shifted in her seat and reached for her water. The bench was not comfortable, but it faced a wide window where planes crossed the bright apron. A ground crew guided a jet with bright sticks, smooth and slow. The strong sun made the metal shine. She felt better with the sun on her face, less like a problem and more like a person in a large, complicated place that would keep going no matter what one small part did. She texted her mother again, "Might be late. We'll call after takeoff." Another blue heart arrived. Aisha tucked the phone away like a tiny anchor. A pair of young travelers approached her bench, eyes careful. "We saw what happened," one of them said, voice low, respectful. "If you need a statement, we recorded some of it." "You were very polite." Aisha thanked them sincerely and gave the supervisor's desk as a contact point. She did not ask for their names. She did not need to hold any more of this than she already held. But she felt the kindness land, and it steadied something inside. Time slid forward. The hall grew a little noisier as another big flight emptied into baggage claim. Aisha checked her watch, updated her notes, and reviewed her next steps: request the footage review, accept the rebooking, keep all language clean and direct, and continue to keep her cover intact. If asked again to leave, she would comply and document. If offered a path back through, she would take it and move on with the evening. Her mission on the other end remained simple and necessary. Her heart rate stayed even. She did not know yet that the unattended bag would soon matter more than her cardigan. She did not know that the man in the gray jacket would try to move quietly toward another exit. She did not know that the focus of the night would shift from a vague complaint to a real question of safety. She only knew what was in front of her: her notes, her calm, the sunlight, the steady hum of travel, and the choice to keep her dignity like a clear line she could follow through any crowd. The next hour moved like a slow river, steady and a little heavy, and Aisha chose to float with it rather than fight it. She kept her notebook open on her lap. Each time something happened, she wrote 1 or 2 clear lines. The record was not an argument. It was a map. At 10:12, she noted that the supervisor in the navy blazer had promised a review after the shift change. At 10:17, she wrote that she was now wearing the long cardigan zipped to her collarbone. At 10:23, she wrote the customer service case number and the name of the polite representative who had taken her call. The act of writing cooled the heat she felt in her chest. Facts were cool. Facts were steady. Facts helped her stand in a fair place even when the ground felt tilted. She watched the checkpoint from the bench. The line was shorter now, almost sleepy, and the low hum of the machines blended with the tinny voice of the public address system. She waited until a small cluster of passengers cleared and the two officers stepped aside to speak with a colleague. Then she rose, adjusted her cardigan, and walked toward the supervisor's desk with calm steps. "I would like to try to re-enter now," she said. "I am dressed as you can see. I have my boarding pass. I am willing to be screened again." The supervisor nodded and glanced toward the checkpoint. "I'll accompany you," he said. There was no flourish in his voice, no attempt to soften what had happened. He was simply a man trying to move a moment forward. He walked with her through the stanchions until they reached the place where Hale and Dorsey stood. The supervisor spoke first. "She has complied with the request to add clothing. I don't see a written dress rule. I believe we should process her again." Hale's eyes flicked from the supervisor to Aisha and back. "She was already directed to leave the secure area," he said. "We are not reversing that at this time." His tone was even, but firm, like a door that looked plain and turned out to be locked. Aisha kept her hand still on the handle of her bag. "Sir," she said, "I want to follow the rules. If there is a written rule that says I cannot pass, please show it to me. If there is a standard process for rescreening after an order to leave, please tell me what form to fill out. I'm not here to argue. I am here to follow a clear step." Dorsey shook his head. "You need to wait," he said. "That's the step." Two travelers who had been nearby during the first exchange edged closer, careful not to crowd. One of them, a woman in a denim jacket, addressed the supervisor in a respectful voice. "We saw how she was treated earlier," she said. "She was polite the whole time. We didn't hear a rule. If there's a rule, okay, but if there isn't, this feels unclear." The second traveler, a man with a wheeled backpack, added, "We have short videos if that helps your review. We're not trying to get anyone in trouble. We just want to say what we saw." The supervisor thanked them, asked them to share their statements at the desk, and looked again at the two officers. "Let's find the text," he said. "If there is no text, we need to be precise with our language." He pulled up a tablet and searched. His brow furrowed. He showed Hale the screen. Aisha could not see the words, but she could read the body language. They had found general guidance about behavior and safety, not a clothing rule for adult passengers. The supervisor exhaled. "Given that, and given the cardigan, I propose we proceed." Hale kept his voice flat. "We are not proceeding at this time." He stepped back. The conversation was over from his side. Aisha understood that pushing harder would not open this door. Pressure would only harden the surface. She turned to the supervisor. "Thank you for trying," she said. "I'll wait for the review and accept the rebooking." At the desk, the supervisor added notes to her record and started the rebooking process. "There's a flight in 2 hours with open seats," he said. "We can place you on that one at no cost. I will also flag your name so a lead can meet you before screening and walk through the steps with you, clean and correct." "That is helpful," Aisha said. She meant it. She did not mistake a small fix for a full solution, but a small fix still mattered. She accepted the new boarding pass and returned to her bench. Her phone buzzed with another short message from her handler. The text was ordinary to anyone else: "Confirm updated arrival window." She typed a short reply: "Arrival later by 2 hours. Routing stable. Will advise if further changes." She read the words twice to be sure they held nothing extra, then hit send. The conversation ended there. Her life required simple sentences. For a moment, the delay pressed down on her like a weight on her shoulders. She had built a schedule with careful spaces, and now the spaces had moved. She allowed herself one deep breath, one quiet sigh, and then chose her next step. She stood and walked toward a small cafe, bought hot tea with honey, and found a seat near a tall planter where the light was soft. She called her mother. Her mother answered on the first ring. "Are you on the plane yet?" the older woman asked, bright and warm. "Not yet," Aisha said. She kept her voice steady and light. "I had a small travel problem. It's being sorted. I'll be late." "Do you need anything from me?" her mother asked. "I'm here. Just hearing your voice helps," Aisha said. They talked for 2 minutes about nothing sharp, the recipe her mother had tried the night before, the neighbor's new dog, the small plant on Aisha's windowsill that had started to bloom. The everyday words smoothed the edges of the day. Before they ended the call, her mother said, "I am proud of how you handle things." Aisha smiled, even though her mother could not see it. "Thank you," she said. "I'll call when I land." Back at the bench, she opened a new email to herself. Subject: Airport Incident Personal Notes. In the body, she typed a tidy summary: time, location, names, phrases used, actions taken, offers made, and what she herself had done. She attached a photo of the customer service case number and a photo of her cardigan zipped up, taken in the restroom mirror, not as proof for anyone else but as a timestamped detail for her own file. She saved the email to drafts and then sent it, so the record would live in 2 places. She also scanned the wall for the small square sign she had used before. The QR code led to a formal feedback form. She filled it in carefully. She described the events in plain language and asked for 3 things: a copy of any dress guidance meant for passengers, a review of the decision to remove her without a clear rule, and a note about staff training on respectful communication. She did not use hot words. She did not paint feelings as facts. She stayed inside the lines of what had happened. When she pressed submit, a small checkmark appeared. Done. Her original flight status switched to departed on the overhead screen. She let the truth of it pass through her without a fight. A plan had changed. New plan now. She turned her attention to the present hall. The unattended carry-on still sat under the chair near the rebooking desk. It had been there for a long time. People had flowed around it like water around a stone. The man in the gray jacket drifted by once more, still on his phone, still scanning more than speaking, and then moved off with a speed that did not match his casual pose. She did not chase the thought. She only placed it in the drawer of her mind labeled Note and Watch. The hall brightened with a burst of laughter from a group of students who had just arrived. A ground staff member rolled a stack of baby strollers toward the gate area. A janitor with patient eyes swept near the windows and nodded to Aisha as he passed. The nod was small, but it felt like a kindness, a way of saying, "You are seen." She nodded back. After a while, the supervisor returned. "I've logged the incident," he said. "My manager will review body cam footage and camera footage within the hour. I can meet you again before your new flight. I'm sorry for the disruption." "Thank you for the update," Aisha said. "I appreciate the specific steps." He hesitated. "For what it's worth," he went on, "we need our rules to be clear so we can point to them, not guess at them." "I'll push on that." "I'm glad to hear it," she said. There was nothing more to add. He moved on to other passengers, and she returned to her quiet routine. She checked her watch and measured how much time she had until the next boarding. Enough to be patient. Not enough to waste. She stretched her legs and took a short walk along the windows, counting the numbered columns, noting the nearest fire extinguisher, the location of a first aid kit, and the exits to both sides. This was her habit in every large space, not because she expected trouble but because knowing the map gave her peace. When she sat again, she felt more grounded, like a song that had found the right key. The 2 travelers who had offered their videos stopped by the desk and left contact information as the supervisor had asked. On their way out, the woman in the denim jacket raised a hand in a small wave. Aisha waved back and said, "Thank you." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Sometimes strangers held a tiny corner of your day to keep it from slipping. She took another sip of tea. The honey had gone cool, but the cup was still warm in her hands. She looked once more toward the rebooking desk. The unattended bag had not moved. A public announcement reminded everyone, in a gentle voice, to keep personal items with them at all times. It was one of those messages people stopped hearing after the 100th time. Aisha heard it. She always did. She did not jump to conclusions. An unclaimed bag could be many things: a mistake, a rush, a traveler in a hurry. But it could also be the start of a problem if people were slow to notice. She decided on a simple, neutral step that fit any traveler who cared about safety. She walked to the desk and spoke to the floor manager on duty, a woman with quick, caring eyes. "Excuse me," Aisha said. "There has been a bag under that chair for quite a while. I might be wrong, but I haven't seen anyone with it. I wanted to let you know." "Thank you," the manager said at once. "I appreciate that." She picked up her radio and made a comm call. Nothing dramatic. No alarm. A member of the team walked over to the chair, looked around, and then made a clear announcement in a friendly voice: "If anyone has misplaced a small black carry-on, please come to the rebooking desk." They waited a minute, then two. No one came. The staff member repeated the announcement and made a note. The world did not tilt. People kept walking. But a small circle of attention formed around the chair, quiet and professional. As Aisha stepped back to give space, she saw movement to her left. The man in the gray jacket had reappeared at the edge of the hall. He glanced toward the desk, then toward the far exit that led down to ground transportation. His phone was still at his ear, but his eyes were not on the screen. He drifted again, then angled away as if pulled by a string. Aisha did not follow him with her gaze. She looked at the large map on the wall instead, as if studying connection options, and let her attention split, one part on the map, one part on the pattern of movement in the hall. Her new boarding time drew closer. She checked the number on her pass and the gate listed beside it. She felt the old calm slide back into place. No matter what had happened earlier, her next steps were clear: meet the lead before screening, move through with precision, sit by the window again, and board when called. She stored her notebook and zipped her tote. She stood and smoothed her cardigan. She was ready to move forward the first moment the path opened. Behind her, the manager spoke into the radio again, voice low. The staff member near the chair kept the area clear, patient and quiet. The hall continued to hum. None of them knew yet how the next hour would bend. Aisha only knew that she would keep choosing the same things she had chosen all day: calm words, precise steps, and a focus on what was real in front of her. That was enough for now. It would also be the key when the shape of the evening finally changed. The manager's radio crackled again, a soft sound under the hum of the hall. Aisha stood near the planter with her tote on her shoulder and watched without staring. The staff member by the unattended carry-on kept a polite distance and repeated the friendly announcement about a missing bag. 2 minutes passed. 3. The students who had been laughing earlier moved on toward ground transport. The janitor finished his careful line along the window and turned down a side corridor. The bag remained where it was, quiet and ordinary, and that was exactly why it needed attention. Aisha stepped closer to the floor manager, who was already watching the scene with steady eyes. "Thank you for acting," Aisha said in a calm voice. "If no one claims it, the next step is to check nearby footage and set a small safety area. You already know this. I only want to support your process." The manager nodded. "We're on it," she said. "I'll have operations look at the last 10 minutes of camera feeds around this spot. We'll keep things calm." She spoke into the radio with clear, measured words. A nearby service desk slowed its work just a little. A staffer placed a short stanchion ribbon near the chair so that people would not brush past the bag by accident. There were no raised voices, no rush. Aisha felt a small knot in her chest loosen. This was the right tempo. Quiet and careful saved time later. At that moment, the man in the gray jacket drifted into view again at the far end of the hall. He paused by a pillar, frowned toward the rebooking desk, then adjusted his cap and turned his body toward the exit that led down to ground transport. His phone was still raised, but he was not talking. Aisha let her eyes slide away so she did not track him too closely. She looked at a poster about travel tips instead and studied it as if that were her only interest. In the corner of her eye, she watched the pattern, look at the bag, measure the room, ease toward the exit. It felt like a line drawn by a light pencil. Not proof. A line. The manager received a quick response from operations and looked toward the nearest camera bubble in the ceiling. They see the bag on feed 6, she told the staffer by the chair. Roll back to find the set down. Another minute, and a second note came through the radio, individual in gray jacket placed the bag. He stepped away and did not return. The staffer repeated the public announcement one more time, giving any honest mistake a final chance to correct itself. No one came. The manager raised her radio to her mouth and said, "Start soft perimeter. Request EOD. Calm tone. Normal flow." The words were simple, and they changed the shape of the next few minutes. Two airline agents pulled stanchions from a closet and made a gentle half-circle around the chair. A young officer with clear eyes, not Hale or Dorsey, took position a few paces away, more to answer questions than to block anyone. A sign was placed at the edge, "Please use the left aisle. Thank you for your patience." People followed the sign without a fuss. Most travelers did not even look up from their phones. It felt like a small detour around a minor repair, not a big event. That was the goal. Aisha measured her next choice. She had information about the man's pattern of movement and a guess about his likely path. She did not have authority to issue any command, and she did not want to break cover. But she could help one more inch without stepping over any line. She walked to the young officer and spoke in a quiet voice. "Good afternoon. I'm a passenger who reported the unattended bag. I noticed someone in a gray jacket circle this area a few times and then move toward the ground transport exit. You may want a person watching that lane, just as a precaution." Her tone held no drama. It was the same as if she were telling a staff member that a faucet was dripping. "Thank you, ma'am," the officer said. He did not ask her for her life story. He did not ask any hard questions. He simply lifted his radio and spoke the suggestion in his own words. Within a minute, another uniformed officer walked to the base of the escalators that led down to the shuttles and taxis and took up a relaxed, watchful position. The two officers who had removed Aisha earlier arrived on the far side of the soft perimeter. Hale's eyes landed on her, then slid to the bag, then back to her. For a brief beat, she could feel him choosing where to put his attention. The manager reached them first and said, "We have an unattended item." "Announcements made." "No claim." EOD requested. "We're maintaining normal flow." She said it like a short checklist. Hale nodded and approached the line. His focus turned to the bag with the efficiency of training. Dorsey stepped beside him. The three spoke in low tones that carried no emotion. An EOD team arrived with calm precision. They did not run. They did not draw attention. They moved like people who had practiced these steps 100 times. A hush came with them, not because they were loud but because they were the center of a new, careful circle. An operations supervisor in a safety vest briefed them in quiet words and pointed to the chair, the nearby cameras, the route from the escalators, and the exits. The EOD lead nodded, set their plan, and began their assessment. Aisha stepped back another few paces. She did not want to be in anyone's way. She did not want to be in any story that would later be told about this bag. She wanted only one thing, the right people focusing on the right risk at the right time. She watched the hall's rhythm adjust, like a melody bending in a new key. A couple with a stroller made a gentle loop around the stanchions. A teenager tugged at a parent's sleeve, and the parent shook their head and smiled as if to say, "We are going this way now." Everything felt orderly and soft. Down by the escalators, the officer who had taken position at the exit spoke into his radio. His head dipped, then rose. He turned slightly and stepped forward. Two more officers appeared from the side corridor, easy and calm, and formed a small, "Human, please stop" gesture as the man in the gray jacket reached the bottom of the escalator. They were polite. The man raised his hands to shoulder height, a simple sure motion. They spoke with him in a low, even tone and guided him to a bench by a pillar. No voices rose. The air did not crackle. The flow of people did not stop. The only sign that something had changed was the way the officer's shoulders eased downward, like a person who had finally found the right page in a book. Back near the chair, the EOD team worked through their steps with steady patience. They communicated in short, plain phrases. They did not rush. They did not guess. They followed their checklist. Aisha felt a quiet respect for the way the hall held itself around them. No fear spread. No rumor jumped. It was as if a wide hand had settled over the scene and said, "We will be careful and kind." The manager moved to Aisha's side for a moment. "Thank you for the early heads up," she said softly. "It helps to have eyes that notice small things and report them without drama." "Thank you for your clear process," Aisha replied. "It makes all the difference." A minute later, an operations update came through the manager's radio. "The escalator team has a person of interest speaking with officers," the voice said. "No panic. Routine questions." Another update followed from the EOD channel, crisp and calm. Aisha felt time stretch and soften. She let her shoulders drop a little and took a breath that went all the way down to her stomach. She reminded herself of the simple rule she had learned long ago: when the right people are doing the right job, give them space and stay ready to support. She checked the clock. Her new boarding time was still a while away. She had what she needed: a clear path when the hall settled, a lead to meet before screening, and a strong sense that the focus of the evening had moved away from her cardigan to real safety. After a careful interval, the EOD lead stepped back from the chair and spoke to the operations supervisor. The words did not travel far, but the meaning reached the air. The bag did not contain anything that would harm people. It was packed oddly and without identification, and that alone had made it necessary to act with care. The team would still file a report and hold the bag for more checks. The soft perimeter remained for a few more minutes while they finished their process. Then, with the same quiet they had brought, they lifted the stanchions and returned them to the closet. The sign at the edge was taken away. The hall's shape returned to normal, like a lake after a small boat has passed. Aisha met the manager's eyes. The manager exhaled, a breath she had been holding gently. "Thank you again," she said. "We'll still want to talk with the person from the escalators." There were other issues, unrelated to the bag. She did not list them. She did not need to. Airport work had many layers. Hale and Dorsey stood a few steps away. For a heartbeat, the earlier scene at the gate flickered in the air between them and Aisha: the words, the tone, the way a simple question had become a closed door. Hale looked at the bag, then at the EOD team, then at Aisha. His face did not change much, but his stance did. The set of his shoulders shifted from rigid to neutral, as if a tight strap had been loosened by one notch. Dorsey checked a note on his pad, glanced at the manager, and then nodded to Aisha in a small, almost formal way. It was not an apology. It was not a conversation. It was a sign that the story of the day had a new center. The manager addressed the small group, professional and clear. "We'll document both events," she said. "We will review our own steps. We will review footage and statements. We will make sure our signage and training match what happened here today. Right now, the immediate concern is closed. Thank you for your steady work. Aisha answered with a simple thank you. She did not add anything about the earlier removal. She did not bring up the lack of written policy. There would be a time for that, and she had already filed what she needed to file. The person she was at that moment cared more about the way the hall felt safe, steady, and focused than about any public win. She walked to the window and stood for a minute where the sunlight painted a bright rectangle on the floor. A plane began to push back, and the ground crew moved with their usual smooth rhythm. She let the scene settle her. Her hands relaxed on the handle of her bag. She checked her boarding pass, checked the time, and checked her list. Meet the lead before screening, keep all language simple, be ready for any basic questions, proceed like any normal traveler. Her life had big secrets in it, but it also had plain steps that looked like anyone else's. Today, those plain steps were the only ones she needed. The two travelers who had spoken up earlier passed by on their way to baggage claim. The woman offered Aisha a soft smile. Looks like everything's okay, she said. Thanks to good process, Aisha replied. And to people who speak calmly when they see something. The man lifted his wheeled backpack and added, "We're glad we could help in a small way. Safe travels." "You too," Aisha said. The exchange was brief and warm, like a small lamp switched on against a gray wall. A staff lead in a gray vest approached Aisha with a professional kindness. "I'll walk you to screening when you're ready," he said. "We'll take it step by step. The goal is clarity and ease." "I appreciate that," Aisha said. She meant it with her whole being. Clarity and ease were not small gifts. They were the foundation of trust in any large place. As they started toward the checkpoint, the hall felt like a living map that had been cleaned and relabeled. The path ahead was clear. The signs were bright. The voices around her were even and friendly. Aisha matched her pace to the lead's pace and let her breath find the same steady rhythm. She did not think about explaining herself beyond what was required. She did not think about the earlier moment at the gate, except to note that it would be addressed in the right forum later. She thought about moving forward in a way that left the space better than she had found it. They paused before the screening line. The lead spoke briefly with the checkpoint supervisor, who reviewed the notes on a tablet and nodded. "We'll process you now," the supervisor said, tone matter of fact. He looked toward Hale and Dorsey, who were already assigned to a different area, and then back to his team. Standard steps. Clear communication. Aisha placed her tote in the bin. She removed her shoes. She laid her phone and small items in the tray. She moved through the scanner with the same calm pace she had used earlier. The machine beeped once and cleared her. A screener with kind eyes smiled and said, "Thank you." She smiled back, a quiet, grateful smile that carried more weight than the words. On the other side, she laced her shoes and zipped her tote. The lead waited, not rushing her, not hovering, simply present. "Gate C12, he said, checking her pass. "Window seats are the best." "They are," Aisha said. She liked to watch the ground move away and the sky open. It reminded her that small rooms and hard moments were never the whole world. They walked together to the gate. The boarding area had the normal sounds of travel again, soft announcements, the rustle of snacks, a child asking a question that made a nearby adult laugh. The lead checked with the agent, made a small note on a screen, and turned to Aisha. "You're all set," he said. "Thank you for your patience. And thank you for the way you spoke up about that bag." "Thank you for listening," Aisha said. She meant both parts. She sat by the window with her tote at her feet. She looked out at the wing, at the small trucks moving like careful toys, at the line of lights that marked the taxi path. The sun had begun to lower, and the light had softened. She thought of her mother and the blue heart that had arrived on her phone. She thought of the calm voices and the quiet courage of ordinary people in a busy place. She thought of the way focus, when it was right, could protect everyone. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket, a simple calendar reminder, arrival update send. She typed, rebooked. Boarding soon. All well. She paused, then added one more honest line for herself, good people did good work. The gate agent announced pre-boarding. Aisha stood, rolled her shoulders back, and felt her balance return. The day had bent in the middle and then straightened. The problem that had pulled on her time and heart now sat in the past, where it could be studied and improved. The present was a clear path to the jet bridge. She joined the line with the quiet confidence of someone who knows who she is and how to move through a crowded world with care. As she reached the scanner, the agent smiled. Have a safe flight, the agent said. You too, Aisha replied automatically, then laughed softly at the mix-up. Thank you, she corrected. The agent laughed as well. It was a small, human moment. It felt like a good sign. She walked down the jet bridge, the air growing cooler and the sound of the plane filling the corridor. Behind her, the airport settled into its evening rhythm. Ahead of her, the cabin lights glowed softly. She stepped onto the plane with calm steps, carrying everything she needed, her tote, her notes, and a quiet belief that clear rules and steady voices could turn a hard day into a safer place for everyone. She had just buckled her seat belt when the lead in the gray vest appeared at the front of the cabin and looked down the rows. He spoke quietly with the flight attendant, who walked over to Aisha's seat with a gentle smile. Miss Carter, the attendant said in a low voice, the airport security director has arrived and would like a brief conversation with you before we push back. We still have a small delay due to traffic, so there is time if you are willing. You can come right back to your seat after. Aisha felt the tug of two duties catch the flight and give a clear account while the facts were fresh. She nodded. I can speak for a few minutes, she said. The attendant thanked her, and the lead escorted Aisha up the jet bridge and into a quiet office just past the gate. The door closed softly behind them. The office was bright and plain, with a round table, 2 chairs on one side, and 3 people waiting with calm faces on the other. The first person introduced herself as the airport security director, Miss Alvarez. Beside her stood an aviation authority liaison, Mr. Lin, and the floor manager from earlier, the one with steady eyes. A small recorder sat on the table, already off. Miss Carter, Alvarez said, thank you for taking a moment. We want to understand what happened from start to finish. We'll be brief so you can make your flight. If you prefer to do this later by phone, we can do that too. Now is fine, Aisha said. I appreciate the chance to speak while I remember every detail. Good, Alvarez replied. This is a routine internal review, not a media matter. We are focused on process and safety. Her tone was professional and respectful. Please tell us, in your own words, how your day unfolded, starting from when you reached the gate area. Aisha spoke in the same calm voice she had used all day. She described arriving early, passing through screening without issue, and sitting by the window. She explained that an airline supervisor had whispered to 2 officers, that the officers approached, that she had asked for a written policy, that none was shown, and that she had offered to put on a longer cardigan right then. She stated how she was escorted out, how she documented the time and names, and how she tried to re-enter once more after zipping the cardigan. She described the supervisor's efforts, the lack of a clear rule, the revoking, and the formal complaint she had filed through the QR code. She did not color the story with anger or sharp words. She stuck to times, phrases, and actions. Alvarez typed a few notes but mostly listened. Lin watched Aisha closely, as if checking each step against a picture in his mind. When Aisha reached the moment of the unattended bag, she explained her simple report to the floor manager, the announcements, the soft perimeter, and the EOD response. She also shared her observation about the man in the gray jacket and how she had suggested, as any careful traveler might, that an officer keep an eye on the exit lane. "Thank you," Alvarez said when Aisha finished. "Your account aligns with much of what we're seeing on camera and hearing from staff and witnesses." The manager added, "Two travelers left statements at our desk. Their videos show you speaking politely and asking for the written rule. We do not have such a rule for adult passengers beyond safety standards." Aisha nodded once. "My goal is simple," she said. "Clear rules and respectful communication. That helps everyone." Alvarez glanced at Lynn and then back at Aisha. "Before we proceed," she said carefully, "I want to acknowledge something. My team flagged that you remained very calm under pressure and that you guided process around the unattended item with unusual clarity. You are under no obligation to answer this next question, but for our understanding, is there any professional reason you were especially careful about what you said today?" Aisha weighed the room. She saw three things: a real effort to learn, a quiet promise to keep the conversation private, and a duty to be as transparent as safety allowed. She reached into her wallet and placed a small ID on the table, angled so that Alvarez could read the limited text without the others picking it up or taking a photo. "I work in a federal role that requires me to keep a low profile," she said, choosing each word with care. "I do not share details unless life or safety demand it. I stayed inside my cover today because the early dispute did not involve immediate danger. When the unattended bag appeared, I supported your team's process in the most ordinary way any traveler could. That was both a personal choice and a professional habit." Alvarez took in the ID with a single, respectful glance. She did not try to copy any number. She nodded once, understanding the boundary. "Thank you," she said simply. She slid the ID back toward Aisha, who put it away at once. Lynn exhaled slowly, as if a piece of a puzzle had clicked into place. The floor manager looked both relieved and a little proud that the hall had moved the way it should. Alvarez continued, "Here is what we will do now. First, we will review the body cam video from the officers and the CCTV clips from the gate area and the checkpoint hall. Second, we will confirm with legal that there is no passenger dress policy applicable here. Third, we will adjust our postings and staff briefings to make that clear. Fourth, we will assign coaching to the two officers who made the initial decision, and will assess whether any further action is appropriate." She paused, letting the words rest. "But I also want to say this plainly. Today, our focus was pulled to the wrong place at the wrong time. It cost you time. It redirected attention. It could have cost us more if the unattended bag had been riskier. That is not how we want to operate." Aisha met her eyes. "Thank you for saying that," she replied. "I have two requests, if I may. 1. Post clear public guidance online and at the checkpoints about what is required and what is not. 2. Deliver a short refresher to frontline teams on respectful words, de-escalation, and how to handle subjective complaints without targeting people." "Done," Alvarez said at once. "We can post an interim guidance tonight and follow with a permanent update after legal review. Training modules are ready to go. We can assign them with a due date this week." She looked to Lynn, who nodded and made a note. "We will also release a short public statement that says procedures were reviewed and updated. No names. No blame. Just facts and improvements." Aisha appreciated the tone. It was not about making a headline. It was about fixing the gears so the machine would run better. "I don't need attention," she said. "I need the next person to have a smoother path." "We understand," Lynn replied. "Before you reboard, may we confirm a few details for the record? Your attire at the time of the first contact, what you described matches the video, but I want your words." "A light jacket over a soft tee, tailored jeans, flats," Aisha said. "Cardigan in tote. I offered to put it on. I later zipped it. Thank you, Lynn said. And you asked for a written policy. None was provided. Correct, she said. The door opened softly, and the young officer who had watched the exit lane stepped in. He looked uncertain, then stood at attention in a polite way. Alvarez waved him closer. Officer Patel, she said, Miss Carter is speaking with us. Your note. Yes, ma'am, Patel said. The individual at the escalators had unrelated issues, outstanding warrants for a nonviolent matter. He is in custody with the proper unit. The bag was cleared by EOD but held for evidence due to how it was packed and placed. Report filed. Thank you, Alvarez said. Good work. Patel nodded and slipped out again. Aisha felt the small knot in her chest loosen another notch. The hall had not only avoided harm, it had also handled a messy situation with care. I'm glad your team stayed calm, she said. Your soft perimeter was textbook. The floor manager smiled a little. It helps when a passenger reports something in a balanced way, she said. No panic, just facts. Alvarez glanced at the clock. We promised to be brief, she said. 2 final items. First, we will rebook or hold your seat as needed and note that you should be escorted through any remaining steps by a lead, which you already have. Second, with your consent, we will include your feedback in our training. No personal details so others can learn from this. You have my consent to use the feedback without my name or any identifying detail, Aisha said. Thank you for moving fast. There was a soft knock. The lead in the gray vest peeked in. They're ready to close the door, he said. We have a pushback window now. Alvarez stood and offered her hand. Miss Carter, I'm sorry for the poor experience earlier, she said. Thank you for your patience and your professionalism. We will do better. Aisha shook her hand. Thank you for your honesty and your plan, she replied. That is what matters. Back at the gate, the lead moved smoothly, like a guide who knew every step of a dance. The agent scanned Aisha's boarding pass again and smiled. All set, the agent said. Welcome back. She re-entered the jet bridge, the cool air touching her face like a promise. In her seat, the same flight attendant offered a quiet thumbs up. The plane pushed back moments later, and Aisha felt the slight sway as the tug released and the engines settled into their low, steady roar. As the plane taxied, Aisha opened her notebook briefly and wrote 3 lines. Spoke with security director. Clear plan to fix signage and training. Kept cover, offered only what was needed. She closed the book and let it rest in her tote. She did not replay the hard parts of the day. She thought instead about the small, good choices people had made, the bystanders who spoke respectfully, the manager who trusted process, the officers who listened, the EOD team moving like a calm tide, the director who chose plain words and real steps. Midair, the cabin lights dimmed, and a quiet hush settled over the rows. A child clicked a puzzle toy softly. Someone whispered a joke and then stifled a laugh. Aisha looked out at the wing silvered by the late sun and felt a long, even breath fill her chest. She sent a short message during the approved window, on board. Will land later than planned. Situation handled. The reply from her handler was a single check mark and the word received. When the plane landed that night, her phone buzzed with one more note from the airport's feedback system. It thanked her for the detailed report and listed immediate steps, interim guidance posted on the website and at checkpoints, training assigned to frontline teams, review of discretionary language underway. It added a simple closing line, our goal is safety with respect. She read it twice. It sounded like a promise and a reminder at the same time. 2 days later, while Aisha was between meetings in another city, a short public statement from the airport appeared in her news alerts. It did not name her or any staff member. It used clear words, procedures reviewed, signage updated, training implemented, thanks to passengers and teams for their calm cooperation. She smiled at the balance of it. No drama. Just a clear map people could follow. That weekend, the floor manager sent one more message through the feedback portal: we practiced a scenario based on your day. The new script helped. Thank you for helping us improve. Aisha typed a simple reply, glad to hear it. Keep going. On her way home a week later, she passed through the same airport. At the checkpoint, a new sign stood at eye level: welcome. Security rules are listed here. If you have a question, please ask. We are here to help. The words were friendly and exact. Staff greeted people with steady smiles. When a traveler hesitated, a supervisor stepped in early and used clear language. The line moved like a song everyone knew. As Aisha laced her shoes after the scanner, she noticed Hale and Dorsey at a distance, shadowed by a senior officer who was likely coaching them. Their posture looked different, less hard, more attentive. She did not need a scene. She did not need an apology. She needed the hall to work the way it should. It did. She walked to her gate, sat by a window, and took out her notebook one last time. She wrote a quiet sentence that belonged to her alone: dignity held. Systems learned. Then she closed the book, sipped her water, and watched a plane rise cleanly into the blue. Weeks later, the changes did not arrive with trumpets. They showed up in quiet ways that mattered. At the airport entrance, a new sign stood at eye level with warm, clear words: welcome. Here are our security rules. If you have a question, please ask. We are here to help. The sign listed the real requirements in simple lines. It did not mention clothing beyond safety and identification. At the checkpoints, small cards matched the sign. Staff could point to the text and say, "This is the rule," instead of guessing. The words were friendly. The style was calm. The message was respect. Inside a meeting room with a soft gray carpet, a different kind of work took place. A restorative meeting had been set up by Director Alvarez. It was not a show. It was a chance to speak and to listen. Aisha sat at one side of the table with a glass of water. Across from her sat officers Hale and Dorsey. The floor manager was there too, along with Alvarez and Mr. Lin. The room was quiet enough that the hum of the air vent sounded like a small, steady drum. No one wanted a fight. Everyone wanted to learn. Alvarez opened with simple words. We are here to understand harm, to review process, and to decide how we will do better. We will keep our voices calm, we will stay with facts, and we will talk about feelings in plain language. Then she played short clips: the first approach at the gate, the part where Aisha offered the cardigan, the escort out without a written policy, and later, the soft perimeter around the unattended bag. No clip ran long. Each one showed a small truth. When the screen went dark, Aisha spoke first. She kept her voice steady. I felt singled out by a rule that did not exist, she said. I asked for the text. None was given. I offered a simple fix. It was refused. That cost time and trust. It also pulled attention away from real safety. I am not here to humiliate anyone. I am here to say that clear rules and respectful words matter, because they guide focus to what truly keeps people safe. Hale's shoulders rose and fell once. He did not defend himself with hard words. I can see now that I used vague language and authority without a clear policy, he said. I thought I was keeping order. I did not stop to check the text. I did not accept a practical solution on the spot. I will do better. The words were plain. They were not dramatic. They were the kind of words that let the room breathe. Dorsey looked at his notes before he spoke. I followed my partner's lead without asking for the rule, he said. I was short with my phrasing. I understand how that felt. I have completed the new training. I am practicing different language now. He looked at Aisha, not past her. I am sorry for the way I spoke to you. I cannot change the past. I can change how I act from now on. The floor manager added detail about the fix already in motion, updated signage, a short script for handling subjective complaints, and a checkpoint checklist that included the line "Show the text." It was a small sentence with big power. If a rule existed, staff would point to it. If it did not, they would not pretend that it did. Aisha asked for one more step. Please build a simple, 5-minute exercise into team briefings, she said. Real scenes. Easy words. Here is a complaint. Here is the text. Here is how we speak to the passenger. Rehearsal makes the right choice faster in real time. Alvarez agreed. Lynn wrote it down. The plan felt practical, not grand, and that made it strong. The effect spread beyond the meeting room. The airport added small QR kiosks where travelers could send quick, real-time feedback without a hunt for a code on a wall. The thank you messages went out to the 2 travelers who had spoken up that day. We appreciate your calm support, the notes said. You helped us improve. The woman in the denim jacket replied with a smiley face and a line that read, happy to help. Kindness is a team sport. It was a light sentence, but the staff taped it on a break room board because it felt true. Training rolled out in simple modules. Each one took 15 minutes and ended with 3 sentences staff could say in hard moments. Here is the rule. Let's find the text together. Thank you for your patience while I check. Those sentences were gentle on the tongue. They were also powerful tools. When a complaint came in about someone's outfit, staff no longer used vague phrases. They used the map on the sign. If the map did not cover the complaint, they did not invent a new road. Weeks turned into a month. One afternoon, at gate F7, a small test of the new system arrived on its own. A passenger complained in a tense voice that another traveler's headscarf was not allowed. In the past, the scene might have grown hot. This time, a supervisor arrived with a soft tone and a small card. Here are the rules, she said, pointing to the printed text. Head coverings are allowed. Our focus is safety. Thank you for your care. We are all set. The complaining passenger looked at the card, nodded once, and said nothing more. The traveler in the headscarf smiled with relief. The line moved on. No one's dignity was pulled like a thread. Another day, Officer Hale faced a new version of an old situation. A traveler demanded that a young man be removed for a sleeveless shirt. Hale took a breath and used the training language. Here are the posted rules, he said, and handed over a card. Sleeveless shirts are not restricted. If you have a different concern related to safety or behavior, please tell me, and I will help. The traveler muttered and walked away. The young man checked his seat number and moved on. Hale felt the difference in his own body. The firmness was still there, but it was shaped by text and respect. Dorsey, nearby, offered a quiet nod. He, too, had begun to use the 3 sentences like sturdy tools he could reach without thinking. Far from the airport, Aisha returned to her ordinary life, early runs along a quiet path, simple meals at her kitchen table, small plants on her windowsill leaning toward the light. She wrote her final internal note about the trip using careful words, outcome good. No cover risk. External systems improved through calm reporting and process focus. Lessons, patience plus precision protects mission and public. Her handler's reply was short and kind, noted. Good work. On a slow Sunday, Aisha visited her mother. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and tea. They sat at the small table that had held so many talks about big things and small ones. Aisha did not carry the whole story into the room. She carried only what her mother needed to know to feel at peace. Travel was strange, then better, she said. People listened. Changes were made. Her mother poured tea and squeezed Aisha's hand. You make rooms steadier, her mother said. That is a gift. They laughed when the kettle whistled again even though the flame was off. The sound felt like a happy mistake. Later that month, Aisha flew back through the same airport. She moved with her usual calm steps. The checkpoint looked familiar and new at once. The sign stood bright. The staff used the script like a song they knew well. When a traveler hesitated, a supervisor appeared with a smile and a card. Let's check the text together, the supervisor said. The tension left the traveler's shoulders before the last word was spoken. At a distance, Aisha noticed Hale and Dorsey again, this time shadowed by a senior officer who watched and offered quiet tips. They were not stiff. They listened. Hale guided a family with a stroller through a lane with real kindness. Dorsey answered a question from a teenager without the old hard edge. It was not a movie scene. It was better. It was ordinary people doing ordinary work with a little more care. At the feedback kiosk, a short note caught Aisha's eye. It was from a traveler who had never heard of her and never would. Staff were clear and kind, the note said. They showed me the rule instead of just saying no. It lowered my stress. Aisha smiled at the screen. She did not sign the note or add a word. She did not need to. The airport was handling its own voice now. That same afternoon, a small ripple of trust spread to a different corner of the building. An older man, tired and worried, misplaced his wallet near the bakery counter and began to panic. A staff member saw his face and stepped in with gentle words, "Let's retrace your steps together." They found the wallet under a magazine within minutes. The man's relief was bright and loud. He hugged the staff member and then laughed at himself. "I'm sorry," he said. "Travel makes my brain forget simple things." The staff member handed him a card with the feedback code. "If you have a moment later, tell us how we did," she said. "We learn from every story." The man promised he would. On her way to the gate, Aisha paused by the big window. A plane lifted into the blue, silver, and smooth. She sent a short message to her mother, on time. All good. A blue heart arrived at once. The simplicity of it warmed her like sunlight on her face. She tucked her phone away and took one more long look at the hall. Behind her, Director Alvarez led a staff huddle near a pillar. She spoke without a microphone, but her words felt clear in the space. "Thank you for your work," she said. "Remember our 3 sentences. Remember the sign. Remember that respect is part of safety." Heads nodded. The group broke apart and moved back into the flow of travelers like gentle stones that shaped a river the right way. Aisha boarded when called. She took her seat by the window and fastened her belt. The ground slid back. The wing tilted. The sky widened. She let her shoulders settle into the seat and closed her eyes for a moment. The day was simple in front of her now, a flight, a quiet hour with a book, a cup of water, a landing, a walk through a different set of doors. Still, she knew the work done in that one airport would keep helping people long after her plane touched down. As the plane climbed, she opened her notebook to write one last line. She kept it short, because simple words can hold large truth. "Dignity plus clear rules protect everyone," she wrote. Then she put her pen away and looked out at the clean edge of the horizon. Down below, the airport sign stood steady, greeting new crowds with the same bright promise, clear text, kind help, real safety. Somewhere in that hall, a small problem would be solved by a soft voice and a pointed finger that said, "Here is the rule." Somewhere else, a traveler would breathe easier because a stranger chose to speak up, not with heat but with care. These were small acts. Together they were strong. The last image of her day was the simple one she loved most, a wing cutting through open sky, the sun turning the metal pale gold, and a quiet belief in her chest that rooms and rules and people can change for the better when we choose patience, clarity, and respect. She rested her head, let the light fill her eyes, and smiled without anyone needing to see it. The world was not perfect, but it was gentler by a few clear steps, and that was enough.